of the Waynesboro Area School District Board of Directors. As we start our meetings, please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Ms. Hennikel, if you could do roll call, please.
Try to get everyone's name right. Okay. Mrs. Zimmerman? Here. Mrs. Straight? Here. Dr. Royer? Here. Mrs. Fortney? Here. Mr. Hamburger?
Here.
Mrs. Miles?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Pence?
Here.
Mr.
Marvin.
Marvin?
Here.
Here.
Hey, it's my first day on the job. It's good.
Hey, you.
Hey, I answer a lot of things. That's right. It's good. All righty, we're all here. We have a light agenda right before our holiday break. So looking at the agenda, is there a motion to approve?
So.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion or amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Up next, we have our approval of the minutes from our December 3rd board reorganization and regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a second. Any amendments or changes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That brings us then to our superintendent report, Dr. Sternerheim.
Thank you. So WASD has been full with lots of holiday cheer. In addition to holiday concerts at all 6 of our buildings, the WASD Chamber Choir performed today at Rotary. They did an outstanding job. I was able to attend the holiday concert at the Franklin Learning Center last week to see our learners as well as learners from throughout Franklin County to celebrate music from holiday movies. Tonight we have a brief presentation from 2 of our SAS presenters, Mrs. Megan McGuire and Mr. Keith McCrae. Dr. McCallum was not able to join us this evening, but they will be highlighting portions of her presentation. We were able to send in a team as well as Dr. Deshawn, and it was quite an honor to be able to participate in the SAS conference, but more importantly that we had 3 individuals from our school district selected to present. In addition, just last night, I was informed by Mr. Keith McCrae that his article was published in the Pennsylvania Educational Leadership Journal. So I actually provided hard copies. It's a very interesting topic, time reclaimed artificial intelligence-driven automation for deeper learning. So I imagine he would be available after the board meeting for autograph copies if you would like.
That's a great headshot, Mr. McCray.
So yeah, this one's good.
Stop it.
Ooh, maybe we can all have these.
There you go.
Oh my God.
There you go. Fascinating.
Wow. In addition, I did attend Bye Bye Birdie. I know it's not a WASD production, but there were a number of our learners who participated, as well as individuals who were part of the production. And we also had a number of people that work for WASD assisting. And on one final note, we did receive a grant most recently for installation of vape detectors. We did have the opportunity through Mr. Nick Erickson last school year. We had piloted a number of vape detectors in our secondary restrooms. It's unfortunate that we would have to do something of that nature, but it is also very fortunate that we are receiving a grant for that installation. So we're looking at options for January. Other than that, all is good.
Thank you, Dr. Sternerheim. Any public comment this evening, Ms. Hennikel?
I was not given any.
Okay, that brings us to our presentations. And so we have the 2022-2023 audit presentation. And so I'm going to invite Mr. Stauffer to come to the mic. He's going to give the presentation. And so there's the report and part of board docs there. If you want, we will be voting on this later in our meeting, and so there's additional documents and business item 3, if you wanted to look through some of those extended documents that were sent out earlier. But the report that he's going to present is in that presentation 1 there. So, Mr. Stauffer.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Again, my name is Kevin Stauffer. I'm a member of the firm of Smith, Elliott Kearns, or SEK. Here tonight to go over the results from a June 30, 2023 audit. So I'm just going to go over a very high-level summary. That includes the audited financial statements, our management letter, and our required communications with those charged with governance. So my task tonight is to summarize 120+ pages in about 5 minutes for you. So that's my goal here as we go through the information.
Works for me.
And the second bullet point that we have does make reference to the unmodified audit opinion, which is the best opinion that we can issue on your financial statements. Essentially, what that means is that we feel that the financial statements are materially correct and can be relied upon. It is not an opinion or results of internal controls, nor an opinion or results of a fraud investigation. I know sometimes people hear the word audit, they may think that we may be looking at every transaction, although it may feel like it to Mr. Holtzman and his staff. We do not look at every transaction. We perform sampling to ultimately issue the opinion that the financial statements are materially correct. And again, we were able to do so. We did perform what's known as a single audit. Anytime you have total federal expenditures over $750,000, we have to look at selected federal programs. This year, we looked at both Title I and the ESSER program, and happy to report that there were no findings related to the single audit, looking at those federal programs, or the financial statement audit themselves. So another positive note to have no findings related to the audit. Financially for the year, overall, the general fund had an increase of about $2.7 million in fund balance, meaning the total revenues exceeded the total expenditures. And that is after a transfer of $200,000 to the capital reserve fund. In total, the revenues for the general fund were just under $78.5 million this year. The total federal revenues recorded in the general fund was about $10.3 million. Again, included in that are the ESSER funds. Moving to the expenditure side of things, again, the total expenditure is about $76.5 million for the year. Does include increases in the expenditures due to spending of the federal funds, and increases in salaries and benefits, and also a couple of capital project related expenses that were incurred during the fiscal year. In the food service fund, another positive note, an overall increase in net position, meaning the revenues exceeded the expenses by about $150,000. So again, a positive note for the food service fund, essentially to be self-sustaining and to have a positive change in net position for the year. The other 2 letters related to our audit, our required communications letter is very standard. So that's why we just considered our standard communications letter. And then the management letter just offers a couple of high-level recommendations and a summary of new standards that will affect the financial statements in the future. And also included in that management letter is just some graphical analysis. And that's what I have here on the rest of the presentation. So on the next page is just a graph that shows the governmental activities, assets, liabilities, and net position. This does combine all the governmental funds and also records everything under the full accrual basis of accounting. So it records capital assets, long-term debt. Included in the debt, again, is your proportionate share of the PSERS liability. So that's why you see the liabilities exceed the assets. For the governmental activities, the PSERS liability is right around $77 million. That's why it shows a negative net position, along with pretty much every other school in Pennsylvania to show a negative net position because of that PSERS liability. So nothing alarming. It's just a recording of that liability for the underfunded PSERS plan.
Kevin, you basically have an unfunded liability.
Yes, but as I've tried to, hopefully I've explained it to this board before, even if you had $77 million that you wanted to apply to that, sorry, you could not because it's part of the overall PSERS plan. So because of that, that's just your proportionate share of that liability. On the bottom graph, it's just a revenue breakdown. It shows the revenues over the past 5 years, and you can see some slight increases in the taxes over that time period, and that is all taxes, not just real estate taxes. Does include earned income taxes, as well as the realty transfer tax. You can see some slight increases in the state sources this year, mainly due to pre-K, retirement, and Social Security, and a little bit in basic ed. And then on the right-hand side, obviously the ESSER funding over the past several years. So that's why you see the overall increases in the federal sources during that time period. On the next page, it just turns your attention now to the expenditure side of things. These are the same expenditures in both graphs. The top graph just shows them by function. So overall, you can see some increases there in the instruction. And then on the right-hand side, the facilities acquisition and improvements related to the projects. But I think that's better shown on the bottom graph where it shows those same expenditures by object. So here you can see the overall increases in the salaries and benefits, as well as in the middle there, the purchase property and services due to the capital projects that were incurred within the general fund. On the next page, it just takes the expenditures per average daily membership, or ADM. And you can see Waynesboro Area School District less in comparison to the LIU schools, and also less than all Pennsylvania school districts. This is 1 year behind, just to offer comparisons. So that data is again as of 21-22. And then the final graph that we have just shows the fund balance and net position comparison. So again, just to highlight the general fund overall increase, if you go all the way back to 2019, the fund balance in the general fund was right around $3.8 million. And at the end of 23, an increase, or a total fund balance of $11.7 million. So an increase of almost $8 million over the last 5 years in fund balance within the general fund. I did want to highlight again the food service fund. They do report under the accrual basis of accounting as well. So they're picking up a share of that PSERS liability. So that's why that's negative as well, but very close to a zero net position as of the end of 23. So just in summary, overall, I think very positive results stemming from the audit this year. We were able to issue an unmodified audit opinion. Happy to report that there were no findings related to the financial statement audit or the single audit. And overall, I think a positive year financially, both again for the general fund and the food service fund. I know that was a lot of information. I hope somewhat fairly quickly for you, but I'm happy to answer any questions either from the presentation itself or from the actual audit documents.
On the recap, Kevin, under the expenditures by object breakdown,
Yes.
in employee benefits, I'm assuming that does not involve the future cost of the pension, just the annual outlay.
That is correct. So that's the PSERS liability, or excuse me, the PSERS expense, which for 22-23, I think was right around 34%, right around there. So for every dollar you have in salaries, 34% goes towards PSERS, but this also includes health insurance, Social Security, other benefits as well.
Any other questions for Mr. Stauffer? Like I said, we'll act on this in a few moments later on the meeting, but Mr. Stauffer started his day with me at 7:30 at a different board meeting in Chambersburg. So if we could let him go, I'm sure he would appreciate it.
Sending me emails before 7. So.
Yeah. So,
Well, thank you very much for your time this evening. We appreciate doing a service for the district. If you do have any questions, either later tonight or anytime, please feel free to either contact me directly or filter those for Mr. Holzman. We'd be happy to help.
well, thank you to you and your team from SEK. All righty, we'll go ahead and let you go. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
All righty. As I said, we will act on that later in the meeting. Up next, we have our standards aligned system presentation. And so I think we have Mrs. McGuire and Mr. McCray.
Okay.
No, I can start, and I just want to say, first of all, like, thank you to the district for allowing us to go and present. It's fun and reinvigorating to get a chance to talk about what we're doing and kind of have those bright spots, so that, especially this time of year when things start getting a little tough. So it's nice to go and kind of share what we're doing and be excited about it, and also hear what other districts are doing. I will say, just from a big picture perspective, there were a couple of sessions that I went to around things that we are working on as a district, thinking like, oh, we can go grab some new ideas for how to kind of move some of those initiatives forward, and we're further along than they are in some of those processes. So it's nice to kind of get that validation as well. Not to say we didn't grab some great ideas, because we definitely did. I'm going to kind of just share a little bit about what Dr. McCallum's presentation was, and then I will let Keith share what our presentation was about. So Dr. McCallum presented her session title was Strengthening School, Family, Staff, and Community Collaboration Through Effective Communication Tools. So we know that Dr. McCallum is a phenomenal communicator. So she shared a ton of her templates and things that she's using, all the way from our chain of command documents that we use, the surveys that we've done about how families would like to receive communication, what things they're interacting with, both from a platform perspective and a format perspective. So she kind of shared some of the templates and the process that we went through for that and what we did with that information. She then also shared the template that she uses for her weekly updates for staff, as well as what she's pushing out to families. And I know several of you are seeing the bulletin that they're sharing, both she and the middle school. So kind of sharing how they're doing those things and what the impact of that is, sharing ideas for promoting the school and kind of controlling the narrative on things like social media and our website. And also looking at who are the stakeholders and are we making sure that we are connecting with each of them in meaningful, purposeful ways. So she had a great session. She didn't have a great time slot on Wednesday because everybody starts getting a little drained. But she had a great session and lots of people were very excited about what she was sharing, and asked for her resources as she was blowing through in Diane fashion, not realizing how amazing some of what she has to share with them. So lots of interaction there and lots of great ideas that she shared out to hopefully improve other school districts and how they're communicating as well.
Mrs. McGuire and I presented on artificial intelligence and how school leaders can use it. The title of ours was From Abacus to Alexa. We actually got a few math teachers in there just because we had abacus in there. Ours was basically just a very quick overview of what artificial intelligence is. And then we focused primarily on how administrators and central office folks can utilize it to help streamline the mundane and the monotonous tasks that seem to eat up a lot of our times. It was very well attended. We had standing room only. And I would say 95% of our audience was central office personnel, which standing there as a teacher in front of them, like I know my stories are not going to land at all, but for the most part, it was very well received. We were even stopped that night during their social hour, and we were told how well our presentation went, and they really got a lot of good things from it. Right before we presented, though, Mrs. McGuire was also asked to be on a panel of, don't laugh, you are, on AI with teachers, administrators, I don't even
Mental
know,
health professional and an IU.
and an IU representative. So again, going through the conference, we found we are very well ahead of where a lot of other school districts are with our stance on this. And a lot of folks are starting to look to us now as to how they can start to implement that. So that was really validating to know we're moving in the right direction safely, but also a lot more quickly than a lot of other districts are.
A lot of emphasis on maintaining empathy while using AI for efficiency. So not letting one kind of replace the other was kind of the crux of what we were trying to put out there.
Possible for us to get copies of what you presented?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be real meaningful because it's
Oh, it's not.
mostly like graphic and was
Okay.
more just us talking, but we can certainly share that. And we shared out some resources on just different platforms that exist in different ways that they can
Okay.
be used. So kind of if you're trying to do this, here's tools you can use to do that. So I'm happy to share it with you. I'm just.
I'll be
sharing out-
honest, AI scares me a little.
Yeah.
And I don't know enough about it. I guess that my biggest overwhelming is fear about how it's going to get misused.
And that is something I would definitely be open to having a conversation about. I was actually approached by one of the other members that went to the KTI summit over the summer. And she actually told me, she said, yours is the first presentation where I wasn't afraid
Okay.
of what they were saying. So,
Well, we talked about a lot at the conference and also on the panel about, we want to be AI is a learning platform. It's learning from every interaction it has from us. So we'd
Right.
rather it's learning from the good guys.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that we are utilizing it and we are understanding how it works and we are helping to further it in a positive direction.
I've got
to-
grandkids and yeah, it
It's
scares me.
everywhere and it's been everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen from a little experience I've had with it, I've seen positive and negatives.
mhm.
Like negative is my 17-year-old who's taking freshman composition at a community college, and he's saying, Dad, I could just knock this essay out. I could just put it in AI, and then I can go and make my own little tweaks to it and stuff like that or whatever. I'd have to teach him how to write first. I think that it doesn't substitute instruction. But on the other hand, being used, like if you want to differentiate instruction, you can say, okay, well, I want to teach a lesson on German nouns. And so I need a version to help with struggling students. I need a lower level. So there are definitely some positives, but the struggle is, the younger kids
Mm-hmm.
and using it to kind of substitute for what they should be learning. And that's the scary part, I think. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a big compliment to our district and to you three in particular for being able to present. And so I think, Dr. Roy, you made the comment at a different board meeting, how this is one of the premier education conferences for Pennsylvania and in our area. So a good kudos to you three and for willingness to blaze the trail. So any other questions for Mr. McCray or Mrs. McGuire?
Well, I would just like to comment that, like any technology, AI can be misused.
Mhm.
And so it's responsible people's job to get out in front and make sure that we use it in the most ethical and efficacious way,
Absolutely.
because the bad guys are out there.
That's right.
Yeah.
In the most simple terms.
And they will,
And I think, Mr. Marvin, we were talking, I can't recall, and I was looking through the program and through some things I had, anytime there's been 3 presentations from one school district.
Yeah.
I mean, ever. So I think the fact that we were chosen, to do that, many times it's been hard even to get one person in. So, yeah, I'm glad I'm sure you had a great time.
We did.
Good pictures at the beginning, so.
Okay.
They met some like celebrities, sort of.
That's right.
There you go.
well, except somebody doesn't do pictures.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. We thank you for your work here in our district, but also how you're promoting the district through your work. So we won't have you on the hot seat anymore, but thanks for coming and talking about what you did.
And
Thank
I'd
you.
also like to thank you for representing our school district, and I think you need a round of applause.
Very good. All righty, we are now down to student board report. Ms. Bowers?
Bye Birdie, because as a cast member, I feel that we were very accommodated within the school. It's always a little bit of a worry for us that something's going to happen to sets or costumes or props, and as far as I know, there's never been any problems, but I'd like to say that we felt very accommodated for, and all went well there. Winter break begins, our last day of school is this Friday, and we are off until January 6th. The winter concert was on Sunday, where both band classes and choir classes performed. Chamber choir and audition ensembles, chamber choir and wind ensemble, are touring this week to all the elementary schools and giving them a little concert to encourage them to get into the music program. Rehearsals for the all-school production Willy Wonka have started off well, in my opinion. The Keystone Winter Session begins the first day back from winter break and ends on January 15th. We start with literature and then move through algebra and biology. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Now that brings us down to board reports. I know in December it's usually a lighter month, but we'll go ahead and just go down in order. Anything from policy committee?
Policy committee meets this Thursday, the 19th. And we also have the second reading for policy 202, 235, 805, 805.1, and 810 tonight.
Thank you. Anything from academic to report?
Academic committee does not meet until January, but I do believe we had the approval last board meeting for 2 different clubs, and I believe we're looking at having something come at the next board meeting for the Pockets group downtown, which would be our first kind of community collaboration for a club. So the academic committee, does recommend bringing that forward for approval.
Okay, very good. I know facilities and budget have not met since last board meeting. Those meetings will be in January. So on that, we will move down to business. So personnel, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, so we're seeking your approval for the number of personnel items listed in your information there. We have 2 resignations of professional staff. We do want to thank Mr. Hebner, and Ms. Cooper was here short-lived, but we do appreciate her time with us. They both are moving just closer to home, and we understand that, but we do appreciate their service. We appreciate Mr. Hebner also moving to the library today so we could utilize his room. He took his classes at the library, so all the high school and washes and secondary and elementary principals had signs for when we need to be in to use like some sinks and stuff in there. So we appreciate Mr. Hebner. So we have another support staff that will be leaving. We're seeking your approval for that. There are 4 support staff resignations. We have 5 reassignments of support staff. Some extracurricular, I think I mentioned this last time for the early birds programs. I know Hooverville and Fairview are doing it, and then these are the folks from Maury to help provide some additional support for some targeted learners with some teachers, a GED proctor. 2 changes in hours for support staff, basically picking up some transportation obligations at the end of the day with some of our special ed learners. 2 support staff appointments. And then also we're seeking your approval for professional staff. Bobby Kelso, she's actually from Waynesboro, and she's worked up at South Mountain for quite a number of years and has a plethora of experience in a lot of different things up there on South Mountain with a challenging population of learners, and we're seeking your approval for her to join our team here. And then we have 2 leave requests.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve the personnel as listed?
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and second. Any discussion or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed or abstentions? All right, motion carries. That brings us down then to an update on job description. Dr. Sternheim.
Sure. So what you have is an update of the Director of Safety and Security. That particular position was required by the state beginning in 2022. And so essentially that role was assumed by Officer Matt Gordon. And so this job description simply reflects the additional responsibilities under that requirement as dictated by the Department of Education.
All right, then. So we have a motion to approve the update on the job description for Director of Safety and Security and School Police Officer. Their motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion?
Or was there just duties added, you said?
So if we go to the job description, interestingly enough, all these additional responsibilities were essentially given to him in 2022 as required by the state. So what we had is a description of a police officer, but not actually the Director of Safety and Security. So the fundamental duties that you have initially, I believe it goes from 1 to 11 are the additional responsibilities or the responsibilities under the Director of Safety and Security, and then 12 in the continuation to 29 essentially reflects, I'm sorry, up to 28 essentially reflects what we are expecting all our police officers to do. I do want to highlight that number 29 is unique in the sense that I was approached by the local fire chief to ask if Officer Gordon, since he does hold the certification, he would be willing to serve as the fire marshal if we would ever need a fire marshal only on district property. Otherwise, they would have to hire someone outside. Obviously, as a district, we would definitely want to have someone, you know, that works with us to be able to essentially perform that duty. So that is unique to that particular role because he does hold the certification. Officer Gordon is aware that that we were adding this, and ultimately, as a district, if it would happen over the course of the weekend or something, we would have to look at, you know, is what type of compensation, if additional compensation is necessary for that additional responsibility.
Other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. That brings us down to our 22-23 audit by Smith Elliott Kearns. Anything to add, Dr. Holtzman?
No, just other than really the business department, food service department do a fantastic job. I mean,
Yep.
they work through this thing and the amount of documents that they have to produce, samples, requirements and information.
Mhm.
I mean, it really is a tremendous amount of work on their behalf. I'm always very appreciative of that work.
Alrighty, so in that case, is there a motion to approve the 22-23 audit by Smith Elliott Kearns as presented?
So moved.
We have a
Second.
first and a second. Any other discussion from the board?
Discussion is only, it's a question which you may not be able to answer. So every school district within Pennsylvania must do an internal audit. And so I assume that all of our charter schools and cyber charter schools, since they're funded by, public funds, also have to do an internal audit, which should be published. Is that correct?
That's a great question. I don't
think-
know.
I don't want to give the definitive answer. I would
Right.
assume that the answer is yes, since they are technically Pennsylvania public schools. So I would assume that they have to follow the same requirement. But I think maybe probably some of the direction of, has the state itself done a performance audit of the cyber charter schools? And probably that has not happened recently as far. And that's probably the direction I think that some districts and some communities would like to see.
Well, thank you. And in my research, the last time the state has audited a cyber charter school was 2017.
Really? Yeah.
That may not be accurate, but yes.
Yeah,
So anyway, I would like to put that out to the public as well, because, if they are receiving public funds from our taxpayers, they should be audited.
Don't disagree.
Thank you.
Any other comments for the audit? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
thank you.
And I assume they'll be beginning the 24.
They've already begun the 23. In fact, we're hoping to have our financial unaudited official, but unknown statements probably tomorrow. That's how kind of wrapped up this got behind a little bit. They've really moved forward. Again, the business office has just really they've been crunching here to get things done. I don't think anybody wants to be here with the holidays,
No,
the motive, but no, they've done a great job.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we come down to the second reading of policies. So these are policies 202, 235, 805, 805.1, and 810. Mr. Pence, anything to add?
No.
All righty. So is there a motion to approve the second reading of the policies listed? There's a second? We have a first and a second. Any other discussion from the board on the attached policies? All right, seeing no discussion, why don't we go ahead and move to a vote then? All those in favor of approving the second reading of the policies listed, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, that brings us then to our financial business. Dr. Holtzman, if we could do items number 1 and 2 together, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So we have the requisitions as well as the bills for payment. That's for the general fund and the cafeteria fund. And then we do have one seated land tax exoneration that was unfortunately due to a mobile home that was destroyed.
Ready. Is there a motion to approve the financial business items 1 and 2?
Pay the bill.
There's a second. Any other questions or discussion from the board? Mrs. Zimmerman? All righty. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of approving, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. that brings us then to our end. So we'll start with Clayton Cabinet comments. Anything from our cabinet team? Dr. Holtzman.
I would just like to thank in advance, even though our schools are really technically closed for almost a 2-week period of time, we do have a lot of maintenance and custodial staff that will be in those buildings, either doing building checks. We do have buildings open, obviously, for athletic events and for practices and things of that nature. So a lot of them will be working on projects and things of that nature. So I really do appreciate their time for coming in, which normally is a holiday time for everybody. So, and we try to minimize it as much as we can. So, but we do appreciate what they do.
And echo those thanks as well. Anything else from our cabinet team? Don't have anything, that's okay.
Merry Christmas.
There.
There you go.
All right, we'll move on to any board member comments. Anything from our board?
I just have a question. Last meeting, we approved the esports. How's that coming along?
Go to the mic. Mike, do you want to go? Nick's not here to remind us, and Jason's not, so.
Moving along really well. Still, meeting every Wednesday. We have our paperwork set to turn into Miss Geisman at, Washes. We have our first president, our first treasurer, and they're looking to start recruiting for the upcoming season, which starts in February.
Right, thank
Very
you.
good.
When you have a
Thank you.
pong tournament, let me know.
Oh,
You can't bring in Rainers to high school sports,
Yeah.
Mr. Hamburger.
Believe me, with my hand-eye coordination, it's not a ring.
Anything else from the board? Alrighty, well, I'll just say thank you all for your work and thank you to our teachers and the work they're doing, and echo Dr. Holtzman for the folks that are working even though school is out for session over the break. Merry Christmas to everyone, and so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
There's a second?
Second.
You have a second. All those in favor of adjourning until the new year, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Not
Thank you
me.
all and Merry Christmas.
Same year.
Christmas.